watching the maitre d'. He put a plate in front of Vice President Johnson. He put one in front of Kennedy. And so far, there is no plate at the place of Mrs. Kennedy.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to introduce or to present to you the distinguished Vice President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson. And now is an event that I know all of you have been waiting for.
Mrs. Kennedy coming in. She's been standing outside in the kitchen waiting for the introduction of the guests at the head table to be completed. For the ladies in the audience, she's wearing a pink outfit trimmed in black. If I knew more about it, I'd tell you the kind of material. It looks like a nubby material, wool of some type. And with the chilly weather outside today, this is probably very appropriate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly present the President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago I said that, introduced myself in Paris by saying that I was the man who had accompanied Mrs. Kennedy to Paris. I'm getting that same sensation as I travel around Texas. Nobody wonders what Lyndon and I wear. But this is a very dangerous and uncertain world. As I said earlier, on 3 occasions in the last 3 years, the United States has had a direct confrontation. No one can say when it will come again. No one expects that our life will be easy. Certainly not in this decade, and perhaps not in this century. But we should realize what a burden and responsibility the people of the United States have borne for so many years. Without the United States, South Vietnam would collapse overnight. Without the United States, there would be no NATO, and gradually Europe would drift into neutralism and indifference. Without the effort of the United States and the Alliance for Progress, the communist advance onto the mainland of South America would long ago have taken place. So this country, which desires only to be free, which desires to be secure, which desires to live at peace for 18 years under 3 different administrations, has borne more than its share of the burden. I don't think that we are fatigued or tired. We would like to live as we once lived, but history will not permit it. Communist balance of power is still strong. The balance of power is still on the side of freedom. We are still the keystone in the arch of freedom. And I think we will continue to do as we have done in our past, our duty. And the people of Texas will be in the lead. So I'm glad to come.
Mr. President, we know that you don't wear a hat. We couldn't let you leave Fort Worth without providing you with some protection against the rain.
in the White House on Monday. If you'll come up there, you'll have a chance to see it all.
And to protect you against local enemies in the manner that you are protecting this nation against our foreign enemies, and to keep the rattlesnakes on Vice President Johnson's ranch from striking you, we want to present this pair of boots. We won't ask you to put them on. Here.
Let us be in the spirit of prayer. The Lord bless our President and all in places of responsibility with wisdom and with health equal to their tasks. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace both now and forever. Amen.
Presidential breakfast from the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth. Now the presidential party will leave Fort Worth, go to Dallas, where this afternoon he will address a crowd at the Trade Mart.
Okay. All right, we'll continue on here. We got a little time. We'll keep going and we'll just continue with the lecture. I want you to see that, however, and then we'll show you one later when we get through this a little bit longer. You'll get a chance to see Gary Bakewell, some of those people. Okay, so we're going to continue on here from where we just left off. And that subtopic is the trip to Dallas. Trip to Dallas. Okay, at 11:20 a.m., and we're still obviously talking about November 22nd, Air Force One left Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth, and it landed in Dallas at Love Field at 11:40. So at 11:20 a.m., Air Force One left Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth and arrived at Love Field in Dallas at 11:40 a.m. Now these timelines are really important to keep track of. And you'll see this on video, so you're going to see this firsthand too, so to speak, on video at least. The President's plane lands as the President and Mrs. Kennedy reach the bottom of that mobile staircase from Air Force One. That, the doors open up and they push up that mobile staircase, and as they walk to the bottom of the mobile staircase, they're greeted by Dallas Mayor Earl Cabell, who you saw in the video, and his wife Dearie Cabell. So as the President and First Lady walk down the staircase off of Air Force One, they are greeted at the bottom of the staircase by Dallas Mayor Earl Cabell and his wife Dearie Cabell. And Mrs. Cabell had a large bouquet of red-stemmed roses that she presented to Mrs. Kennedy at that time. So as the plane lands, the mobile staircase is pushed up to Air Force One. The President, First Lady depart off the aircraft, come down the mobile staircase. They are met at the bottom of the stairs by Dallas Mayor Earl Cabell and his wife Dearie. And Mrs. Cabell presents at that time Jackie with a large bouquet of red-stemmed roses. The reason I tell you that is because we're going to find those red-stemmed roses in the blood-stained limousine here in not too long. Not too many minutes. It becomes a very big symbol of the assassination. After that occurred, a wheelchair was pushed toward the President and Mrs. Kennedy, and they were introduced to Mrs. Annie Dunbar. So after Mrs. Kennedy was presented with her roses by Mrs. Cabell, a wheelchair was pushed toward the President and Mrs. Kennedy, and in the wheelchair was an elderly lady by the name of Annie Dunbar, who was introduced to the President and the First Lady. She was 85 years old. And as she spoke with the President and Mrs. Kennedy, she told them that she was a loyal Democrat, but had never seen a president. So she was thrilled to death. So also at the bottom of the mobile staircase was Annie Dunbar, an 85-year-old elderly woman in a wheelchair who was introduced to Mrs. Kennedy and the President, and she told the Kennedys that she was a loyal Democrat and had never had an opportunity to meet a president. So the President shook her hand very warmly, and they moved on towards the motorcade. Okay? Now you understand what a motorcade is. It's a long line of cars. It's like a parade. Now the presidential limousine had been flown in from Washington, D.C. and its top and windows had been removed at the President's request. Okay, the limousine is an open-top limousine, but it did have a non-bulletproof clear top that went on the top of it. And they flew that in too because it was kind of a rainy day in Dallas that day, but the skies had parted, so to speak, and the rain had disappeared, and the President did not want the bubble top on the limousine. Okay, so the presidential limousine was flown in. It had its top and windows removed, and it had the convertible look to it. Okay. Now I'm going to give you 4 reasons why presidential protection by the United States Secret Service is going to be pretty difficult in Dallas for those agents. Okay, so presidential protection was going to be an issue this day in Dallas, and I'm going to give you 4 reasons why the United States Secret Service would find it a difficult day, okay, to protect the president. And you got to remember this is 1963, so it's much different. But here's the first reason, and I already gave it to you. The president insisted on riding in an open convertible during the motorcade. He wanted to be seen by the public. Okay, that's obviously going to make it more difficult to protect him. So it was his decision, as I mentioned, to take off the bubble top. And again, it was not a bulletproof top like some people would like to tell you, but it certainly would deflect a bullet better than having nothing on the car. Okay? So number 1, at the president's insistence, he wanted to ride in an open convertible during the motorcade route. He wanted to be better seen by the public. That was the first reason why presidential protection is going to be pretty tough for the Secret Service on this date. The second reason is because they were expecting just huge crowds along the motorcade route. So the president's really going to be a wide open target, is he not? I mean, there's huge crowds, and we'll talk more about that. They're expecting large crowds along the motorcade route. All along that 11-mile route, they expected huge crowds on both sides of the street. The third reason it would be tough for the United States Secret Service to provide presidential protection that day is that Secret Service agents who would normally surround the presidential limousine were pulled back. In other words, normally the president would have a Secret Service agent riding on the bumper or on the, we call them Nerf bars now, on the side of cars, excuse me. And usually they'd have Secret Service agents walking alongside the limousine. Why were they pulled off? Who pulled them off? The president, because he wanted to be seen better. He didn't want that persona that he was, you know, being protected, so to speak. He wanted to be close to the people. So the third reason why presidential protection by the United States Secret Service is going to be tough that day is Secret Service agents who normally would surround the presidential limousine or be on the running boards or be on the back were pulled back because the president wanted people to see him, not agents. Okay? Now the fourth one was the one that most bothered them, but they did get through it. The President and Mrs. Kennedy were scheduled, when they got off that plane and met the dignitaries, so to speak, they were scheduled to follow the Secret Service, you know, pretty much from where the plane landed to the motorcade in a direct route, right behind the Secret Service. And there was a fence over here that was several yards away from that direct route. Well, instead of following the Secret Service to the motorcade, Mrs. Kennedy and the president kind of snuck off like a couple of little kids and went right, without Secret Service protection, right down this fence, and you'll see it on video, and walked all the way down the fence and shook hands until they got to the motorcade. And then the Secret Service had to kind of adjust and get around it. But you'll see how close of proximity people had to the president and the first lady, which in 1963 was even a little unusual, okay? Because presidential protection, just that doesn't happen now, okay? But they actually kind of snuck off, and that was the fourth reason it'd be tough to protect the president, because of his philosophy of just not following directions on what he was supposed to do to be protected. Instead of following the Secret Service, you know, in a straight beeline to the motorcade, he and Jackie basically snuck off towards the fence of crowded people, waved and cheered. And they did that for nearly 5 minutes. They walked along the fence and they touched the hands of as many people as they could. Okay? Snacky, okay. Anyway, but you can picture that in your mind as they do that. There's no way to protect those people. And for 5 minutes they were just totally unprotected, basically. But just think of the events that happened just, you know, a few minutes away in downtown Dallas, what the impact of anybody that had a chance to touch the president or first lady's hand was on that route. They'd certainly never forget it, especially with what happened. Well, the couple finally got into the presidential limousine and the motorcade began. Now I'm just going to give you who was in the lead car and who was in the presidential limousine, and then I'm going to give you a little handout, a crude handout of how the motorcade lined out. We'll talk about it, okay? So the lead car of the motorcade contained the following people, 4 people. This was the lead car, the car that led the motorcade, first car in line, okay? Here's who was in the lead car. Police Chief Jesse Curry, that we already talked about, he actually was the guy that drove the lead car. So Police Chief, Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry was in the lead car. Now, we have a Washington County Sheriff's Department, we have a Worland Police Department, right? Gabe Elliott's the Chief of Police, and who's the Sheriff? Okay, Rackus. Well, the Sheriff of Dallas County was also in that lead car, Bill Decker. Bill Decker was the Sheriff of Dallas County, just like Steve Rackus is the Sheriff of Washoe County. And he was also in the lead car. So they have the Police Department represented in Police Chief Jesse Curry, and they also have the Sheriff's Department represented with Sheriff Bill Decker. Also in the car was Forrest Sorrells. Forrest Sorrells. You'll learn more about him later. Forrest Sorrells. And he was the Secret Service agent in charge of the advance team to Dallas. He was a Secret Service agent that was in charge of the advance team to Dallas. Secret Service agent in charge of the advance team to Dallas. Jewel, what do you think the advance team to Dallas means? What's your guess on that? What's advance team mean? What's advance mean? Prior to, right? So he was in charge of the Secret Service agents that came to Dallas in advance of the president's arrival and made sure everything was kosher and okay. Okay, and that was Forrest Sorrells. He was a Secret Service agent in charge of the advance team to Dallas. And the 4th person in the car was another Secret Service agent, Winston Lawson. You'll see more of him as well. Winston Lawson. And he was the Secret Service agent who planned the entire motorcade route. Winston Lawson. Secret Service agent who planned the entire motorcade route. He's the one that released the route to who? Newspapers. Okay, he was the one that totally... Okay, the second car in line was the presidential limousine. Presidential limousine was next in line. And we'll tell you tomorrow who was sitting where in the presidential limousine, who was driving, etc. And then we'll continue the lecture after the quiz tomorrow. The quiz will not take very long. Okay, so if you would please meet in the Commons tomorrow. We'll take this quiz and then we will come back and finish some lecture. Okay?